Hi everybody, I'm Chef AJ and welcome to my kitchen. I'm going to be making 5 brand new recipes that are in my upcoming book, The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, a revolutionary approach to conquer cravings, overcome food addiction, and lose weight without going hungry. So why don't you join me? Let's get cooking. So I'm going to be making 5 recipes today and hopefully a bonus recipe if I get the use of another plug. The problem is in my own kitchen, I can't use more than 2 plugs at a time or it just, the fuses blow. So what I'm going to be starting with are the C.R.A.M muffins, C.R.A.M. And these were created in honor of our friend, Dr. Doug Lisle, a psychologist at the True North Health Center and at the McDougall 10-Day Living Program. Dr. Lisle's been giving some lectures now on his new material about the C.R.A.M circuit that causes people to often binge or at least have cravings or overeat at night, which is a problem for people, especially if they're trying to lose weight. I know that Dr. Lisle loves carrot cake, so what I was trying to do is create a healthier version of a carrot cake that people could ostensibly eat at night if they're going to cram anyway. Instead of doing, French fries and ice cream, why not give them something healthy? So this is for you, Dr. Lisle, the C.R.A.M muffins. So I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you've ever seen me before or taken a class with me, you know that I'm a stickler about getting an oven thermometer. I was a pastry chef, the executive pastry chef at Sante Restaurant on La Brea for 5 years. And at restaurants, we always use an oven thermometer. And the reason is because ovens are not always accurate. You could have a brand new oven and think it's accurate. I was an apartment manager for years, and we'd have ovens that were completely miscalibrated. So spend the $10, get an oven thermometer, and know that your 350 may not be 350. The oven needs to be at 350. For baking, it's really important. And if you write me and say, well, it didn't work out, the first thing I'm going to say is, was your oven calibrated? Did you use an oven thermometer? So make sure it's at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to start with about 4 cups of shredded carrots, 8 ounces of carrots. You can see that I have an injury on my hand. I don't have a lot of use of my right hand. I'm actually supposed to be wearing a bigger brace, but then I couldn't do anything. So I'm using, for convenience, pre-shredded carrots, which thank goodness they exist. But I want them a little bit smaller, so I'm using this little tool called an ulu, which you get for $20 at ulufactory.com, or you can use the mezzaloom. And I'm just going to be chopping them a little bit finer in my bowl. And so I've chopped this the way I like it. I don't want really, really long shreds. And now I'm going to add my other ingredients. So what do I want to add? Okay, so I have in this bowl, I've done a little bit in advance just because I needed help because of my hand. I have 3 cups of banana puree. All that is very ripe bananas that I processed in my blender, or you could use a food processor with the S-blade to get 3 cups. And 3 cups of banana puree is usually about 20 ounces of bananas, 5 or 6 bananas, depending on the size, and 4 cups of chopped apples, which I chopped in my food processor with the S-blade again. My hand's not doing so good today. I'm using the Envy apples because I love them and they're sweet. Any apple would be fine, but preferably a sweet one if you want the muffins to be sweet. So I'm adding this to the bowl. And now I am going to add the remainder of my ingredients, which are, as soon as I find them, and then I put my bowl. So it's a cup of unsweetened applesauce, and I love buying these little cups of organic applesauce at Costco. Oops, just got it all over my brand new outfit because they're so convenient, and each one is exactly a half a cup. So you don't even have to measure. Just clean that up. So I'm using 2 of these. Unsweetened applesauce is a great replacement in baking for oil or for fat. It just makes things nice and moist. It's one of the things we used when I worked at the restaurant. And we're going to add 3 cups of gluten-free oats. These are the rolled oats. And we're going to add a half a cup of ground millet. Now, if you're somebody that has trouble with flours or grinding, just add another half a cup of oats. But oats can be kind of gummy, and I don't like to grind my oats in general. I don't like to grind anything, but by using this half a cup of ground millet, it just takes away some of the gumminess, but you certainly could substitute the the oats, but it will be a better texture if you can use the millet, but it must be ground. If you don't grind it, it's like birdseed and it'll just be crunching on millet. You want it ground raw, not cooked and not whole. So we're just going to add that half a cup. And when you think about it, this makes 24 muffins. A half a cup is 18. It's like a tablespoon of ground millet per muffin. So for most people, that is not a problem. And then I have my baking powder, baking soda, vanilla powder, and pumpkin pie spice. So I'm using a salt-free baking powder and baking soda, a half a tablespoon each. And you can get salt-free in many of the stores or order it online. I'm using pumpkin pie spice. Make sure if you're using a spice blend like pumpkin pie spice, apple pie spice, or even savory spice blends like curry, that you like what's in the blend, because you may have heard the story about when I did my apple pie rice pudding and the coordinator of the conference got this very odd brand that I never heard of, and it ruined the recipe. Nobody would eat it because it had fenugreek in it. So make sure you taste the spice, or you make sure you like it before you're using it. Even things like chili powder, they can vary so widely in heat. So make sure when using spice blends, you actually read the label and the ingredients and know what the blend is, because even pumpkin pie spices, some can have just a lot of clove or nutmeg. You can make it yourself. If you can't find it, you could just use cinnamon, or you could use, instead of a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice, you could use 2.5 teaspoons and a half a teaspoon of nutmeg. But just make sure you like it. I love using roasted cinnamon. I stopped using vanilla because the reality is that alcohol-free had either sugar or glycerin, and the ones that were with the alcohol maybe didn't have sugar, but they had alcohol. And I was making my own vanilla water for a while with the vanilla beans, but that just got too labor intensive and it didn't last a long time because if I didn't use it. So what I'm using now, this was a gift from my friend Laurel. If you're watching, Laurel, get me another because it's lasted a while, is vanilla powder. This brand is Living Community Foods. Just go on Amazon, just get any of the brands that don't have sugar, just plain vanilla powder. It's much more potent. You use a lot less, and I'm using 1 teaspoon, so I'm going to put that in. And now this again is optional. This is a half a cup of raisins or currants. The reason the muffins are called C.R.A.M muffins in honor of Dr. Doug Lyles, because he uses the word C.R.A.M circuit, but it also stands for C.A.R.M, an acronym, carrot, raisin, apple, and millet. That's why I called it C.R.A.M also. So I'm actually using currants today, which are a little bit smaller than raisins because they disperse a little better. They might even be a little sweeter. So I'm using a half a cup, which is 8 tablespoons or 24 teaspoons. You're getting 1 teaspoon per muffin. If dried fruit is a trigger and you can't buy it or have it in the house, again, it's fine. I've omitted it, but it's kind of fun if you put it in, and then that's the R in C.R.A.M. It's raisin, even though I'm technically using currants. So then the last thing I'm going to add is a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. These will not rise the way, traditional cakes will, but what apple cider vinegar does is it creates sort of a chemical reaction with the baking powder and baking soda that does give it a little bit of a rise. It's really important when you're doing vegan baked goods that you don't overblend or overmix. I learned that from my pastry chef mentor, Chef Eric Lechasseur, who, if you don't know who he is, you can see him on episode 13 of Healthy Living with Chef AJ. We make a lot of stuff together. And so then we mix it together. Anytime you make any recipe, but especially a recipe with a lot of ingredients, it's a really good idea to do what I did for this presentation, do what's known as your mise en place. It's a French word for everything in its place. Because if you're going to make a recipe and then you have to go get this and go get that, it's going to take so much longer. So it's always a good idea to have everything you're going to do ready. So now you see I mixed it very gently. I didn't overmix it. There's no sugar or flour. Well, I guess you could say that half a cup of millet is technically flour, even though I ground it myself. But you know what I'm saying. It's not traditional flour. There's no oil in this recipe, obviously no animal products, and certainly no salt. And I gently mixed it just to fully incorporate these ingredients. So these are going to taste a little bit like carrot cake, I think, and they're not overly sweet, but yet they're sweet enough that my husband Charles will take them to work and eat a few of them for his what we call second breakfast after he's eaten his vegetables for breakfast. So sorry it's taking a little bit longer. I don't every stir of the spatula is causing me intense pain. This is why we need our sous chef. So now I'm mixing this up. There we go. I wouldn't recommend a green apple in this unless you like things tart because, again, there's no dates or sugar of any kind, so these aren't super sweet. Now, how sweet they will be will depend on how ripe your bananas are. I always get my bananas as ripe as I can when I'm making a recipe like this, and I freeze them, and you can always defrost them and use them, and that's actually what I did. So I'm using two different kinds of muffin pans because I figure you're going to have one or the other. This is the conventional metal muffin pan, which you can get anywhere. I mean, online, of course, I've seen it in every store. This, I believe, is Wilton. You could get it at Bed Bath & Beyond or Michael's. And so when I use these, I always use muffin liners. This is parchment paper, so hopefully it won't stick, because it's really hard to clean these metal ones if you aren't. But what I prefer is the silicone ones. And you don't have to line these with papers. But the reason I did is because my hand is injured and it's just, I can't really use it and I can't clean this right now. So I lined this with paper. The silicone ones you can get, again, at Walmart, Bed Bath & Beyond, Michael's, and Amazon for less than $10. This is what I really recommend. They're oven safe to 450 degrees, and you never really bake higher than about 350 anyway. These are great for oil-free baking and cooking because nothing sticks. So then what I'm going to do is take my scoop and fill this. So the scoop really just helps me get an even amount in every single one. Your hand is working, it won't take quite as long as I'm taking here. I'll just try to make these even. Now, like I said, this is going to make 24 muffins, and I've eaten, I don't know, for me a serving, like when I've eaten these, I don't know, I've eaten like probably 3, 2, 4. I mean, you know, it's all real food, and you will get fuller when you eat real food with actual nutrient value, as opposed to eating flour, sugar, and oil, which is what a traditional dessert is. And if you had a larger, there are muffin pans that you can buy to make jumbo muffins, in which case you did that, you would make 12 of these. It would make 12 instead of 24. Now, these freeze great, by the way. I have frozen them, and they are wonderful. And this, you know, I never expected to be doing another webinar with Gustavo. I'm always pleased to do that. But what happened is I had interviewed Dr. Doug Lyle. And if you haven't seen that interview, please go to YouTube. It's a fantastic one. And I can't remember the name of it, but I've interviewed him quite a bit. And I'll be I interview him probably once a month now, just like Gustavo does on the McDougall webinars. And I had mentioned that I had created these muffins as an homage to him. And it went crazy, our email, with people wanting this recipe. And so we stopped production. We didn't stop production, but we kind of delayed the book a little bit just to get this recipe in the book so that everyone would have it. And now you have it now. And I hope you enjoy it. It's perfect for this time of year. It could even be, depending on your palate, it might even be able to be a dessert. Again, it's, you know, if you're used to eating sugar and flour, this may not be what you expect, but if you have a pretty clean palate and eat the way we recommend in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, boy, this will be almost a hyper palatable treat for you. So we've got these filled, and again, remember, in this kind of baking, you're not going to get the kind of rise you do when you're doing flour and sugar. So this is my first pan, just like this. I'm going to put both pans in the oven at the same time so that they bake evenly. And you always want to remember to rotate your racks. Always do that halfway when you're baking. Even when you use the air fryer, you want to rotate your racks. At least that's assuming you have the Breville where you're using 2 racks. So that's good. And, you know, this would be great to give your kids, especially if you're trying to get them to eat healthier. I think kids will like it. And you want to cook sort of on a middle rack. You don't want to be on too high of a shelf or too low of a shelf. Actually, these both will fit on the same shelf, which is perfect. Then I won't have to rotate the racks. And now what I'm going to do is set my oven timer for 45 minutes. And I'm going to get on with the next recipes. There we go. So now I'm going to make 2 of my newest recipes that I really enjoy, which are called sun-dried tomato, artichoke sun-dried tomato quinoa, and mushroom wild rice. So I'm using my 2 very favorite Instant Pots. I'm using the 3-quart baby iPot, which we just gave away to a lucky winner who watched Weight Loss Wednesdays. Make sure if you don't watch my weekly show, start watching it, because we're going to start doing more of these giveaways because people really enjoy them. And I've got my 8-quart. If you don't have an Instant Pot yet, consider getting one. It's really what makes healthy eating so easy. They have several different sizes, 3, 6, and 8. If you're only going to get one, I recommend the 8-quart because the 3-quart is great for travel and certain recipes, but the 6-quart is great too. But some of my recipes, like my black bean mushroom chili, really work better in the 8-quart. So you know that you can always do less in a big pot, but you can't do more in a small pot. But I love my baby iPot though. That's what we use every day to cook our greens for breakfast. So all I've done is put in the measured amount of water in and push the keep warm button, which heats the water up just so that this will go a little bit faster. So in the 8-quart, I am going to make my mushroom wild rice. Grains are a great thing to have on hand. I always batch cook them and freeze some and eat some so that there's always healthy food available. And using an Instant Pot is a great way to batch cook grains. You're welcome to have a rice cooker. Rice cookers generally come with nonstick inserts. Some people are not comfortable with nonstick. Instant Pots come with stainless steel inserts, so it not only is a pressure cooker, but it's a rice cooker and a slow cooker and a yogurt maker and a steamer and 2 other functions. I don't remember what they are exactly, but they cook beans in 10 minutes and steel cut oats in 5. They're just wonderful, and hopefully you have one. If you don't, my name is AJ, and that's the code on the Instant Pot website for $10 off, and you can get them everywhere now: Target, Walmart, I think even Costco. So what I'm starting with is 1 bag of wild rice. Wild rice is technically a grass. It's not a grain, and I know some people don't eat traditional grains, and everybody's scared about the arsenic in rice. I'm still eating rice. Yes, even white rice, even Texas rice. But I know people are looking for alternatives for grains because grains are hearty and healthy, and they're just so filling. And all starch is good, but grains are kind of fun because there's so many things you can do with them. So in my 8-quart Instant Pot, I have 4 cups of water, which I've heated up. And if you do make your own no sodium vegetable broth, which I've taught you in some of the other free webinars with Gustavo, it's very easy to make with scraps. You could certainly use that. I don't recommend boxed broth. I don't recommend really any processed food. If you know me for 10 years, I wrote a book called Unprocessed. I eat no processed food, nothing from a can, a box, a bottle, or a bag. And I've done this for almost 10 years now. Make 3 exceptions: can-free, salt-free canned beans, salt-free Muir Blend fire roasted tomatoes, and also tomato paste, and 1 brand of salt-free mustard. Other than that, everything I eat is unprocessed. I encourage you to do the same for yourself, both for your health and for the planet, because there's a lot less packaging when you don't use things like that. So I have a 1-pound bag of wild rice that I'm putting in the Instant Pot. And then I'm going to add 2 ounces or 2 cups of dried mushrooms. Now, this is the brand I'm using for Costco, and if you don't have a Costco near you, move somewhere that you do, or if you do have one and you haven't joined, it's really worth it. And just for the optical department and the free hearing tests and all the wonderful clothes, which, by the way, I bought at Costco. So I'm going to add 2 ounces or 2 cups of dried mushrooms, and you can buy dried mushrooms at pretty much any store. They're very cheap at Asian markets, and you can get them at other stores and natural food stores, but they're generally quite expensive. A 1-ounce bag at a natural food store can be really even almost as expensive as this almost 1 pound that I got at Costco for, I believe it was about $6.99. And so this is a variety. So we're putting that in there. And this is just going to make it not only so flavorful without using salt, using something like dried mushrooms, but it's also going to give it a really kind of toothsome and delightful chewy texture. So I'm going to place the lid on top of the pressure cooker. If you have trouble putting your lid on, just think of it as a clock and always put it at 11 o'clock. And now, I don't know if Charles needs to get a close-up of this. I am just literally going to push 1 button, and the button says multigrain. And then I'm going to just push it to the side, and that's that. So we could get a close-up if you like of the Instant Pot, but I basically just pushed the multi-grain button. As you know, there's lots of buttons on the Instant Pot. When it beeps like that, that's just saying, hey, is this what you want, lady? Yeah, that's what I want. I've never read the manual to the Instant Pot, even though I'm a contributor. I just asked Sharon McRae what to do, and I just basically used the manual button, but it was Shada that taught me how to do this. 4 cups of water, 1 pound wild rice. And then in my case, I'm adding these very flavorful, toothsome 2 cups of dried mushrooms. So now I'm going to make another grain dish, because those of you that have seen the webinar I did with Gustavo called the 8 Secrets to Superior Salad Satisfaction, we talked about one of the secrets to satisfaction for eating and enjoying huge ass salads every day, and for just enjoying this lifestyle, is starch. You need the starch for satiation. You know, these unrefined complex carbohydrates are to the hunger drive what oxygen is to the breathing drive. And if you omit starch or eat too little of it, your dietary goals are probably going to backfire, as will your weight loss goals. You need starch. I eat about 3 pounds of starch a day. And one of the things that's really fun is to put starch in your salad, whether it's cooked butternut squash or cooked sweet potatoes. I really love having grains in my salad. Any kind of grain, rice or quinoa, millet. So in this case, I'm going to be using some quinoa as soon as I can find it. Oh, here it is. So what I like to do, and I know that not everybody has a Trader Joe's, but I love to use the organic sprouted quinoa. This is the tricolor, and I love it because it comes in an 8-ounce bag. And for this recipe, I'm not making the huge amount. I'm making only 8 ounces. But if you don't have a Trader Joe's near you, you can use any kind. This is 1.5 cups of red organic quinoa. And I'm going to put it in the pressure cooker that has 2¼ cups of water, because the ratio for quinoa to water is 1 part grain to 1.5 cups of water. Now that's the ratio in the pressure cooker. If you cook it on the stove, it's 1 to 2. Quinoa is a very, very fast cooking grain. It takes about a minute in a pressure cooker. But what I'm going to do to make it delicious, because remember that this webinar is about how to eat everything when it feels like you can't eat anything, and that anything is specifically the drugs, the food-like drugs that people are addicted to, the sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, and salt, is I'm adding a 3-ounce bag of salt-free sun-dried tomatoes. And just like the mushroom did in the other recipe, the sun-dried tomatoes will do in this recipe. It'll give it a toothsome quality, but it just gives it a lot of flavor. Like the mushrooms, they're dried. And do you know that it takes about 4 pounds of tomatoes to make 3 ounces of sun-dried tomatoes? And so while there's no salt in it, it somehow tricks your palate, and it's just such an intense flavor, you don't seem to miss the salt. So now I'm going to be closing this, and I'm going to be putting it on literally the manual button, and I'm literally going to be putting it on. I don't know why it's at 45 minutes. I can't imagine what we did in here, because this has a preset remembering. Usually it's 5 minutes. So literally 1 minute. And that's that. Now, it's not going to take 1 minute from this moment in time. It's going to take 1 minute from when it comes up to pressure, which is when the internal combustion system, if you will, gets up to 249 degrees Fahrenheit. As you know, boiling is, I believe, 212 degrees Fahrenheit. This is higher heat, and that's why it's able to cook so quickly. So this will probably be done in no time, which I hope, because I need the plug. So, you know, quinoa has a toxin on it. I believe it's called saponin. So you're supposed to rinse your quinoa. Now, I'm lazy. Not even that I'm lazy. I'm disabled for a while, hopefully not too much longer. So I like to buy pre-rinsed quinoa. But if you don't, you can get one of these bags at a paint store for about 99 cents. They're a paint straining bag, and you can use these if you make homemade almond milk. These are great for, like, if you make my disappearing lasagna on page 100 of Unprocessed, it calls for 2 1-pound bags of frozen spinach or kale. But when you put it in here, it makes it really easy to squeeze the liquid out. And this is a great way to rinse your quinoa if you're buying unrinsed quinoa in bulk. It's just for 99 cents. It's great. Just make sure you get one that hasn't been used for paint. You want to get a new one. And these are absolutely terrific, and I really recommend these. And, you know, you can buy, quote, nut milk bags online for $7 to $10. You know, just go to a paint store. That's what I do. So we're going to do that. And while we're waiting for these grains to cook, we're going to move on to another recipe. Actually, the quinoa is also going to have some artichokes in it. So I'll just show you that now. I love living next door to Trader Joe's, and I can't imagine living in a city without one. They have 12-ounce bags of frozen artichokes. But don't worry if you don't have a Trader Joe's, because I've been in small towns with Kroger's, and they still have frozen artichokes. They may be in 8-ounce bags, but they definitely have them if you want to get one without salt. Now, you could use the jarred as long as they don't have oil, or the canned, but realize they're going to have salt. And I'm trying to teach you how to enjoy food without salt. So what you would probably want to do if you're avoiding salt is to soak them very well, at least overnight, and constantly change the water. You're still going to have some sodium, but less. So what I did is I took those artichokes and I put them in a bowl. And again, with the tool I showed you at the beginning, the ulu, which is right here, I chopped them finely because I don't want, I mean, you could leave them whole if you want big chunks of artichoke, but I like things to be a little bit more uniform. When the quinoa is done, we're going to mix it into this. And what's great about both these recipes, these can be side dishes, but they're also delicious cold. So in a salad, they're delicious cold, they're delicious warm, even at room temperature, and they're extraordinary hot. You can use them as your base of your meal, a base of a bowl where you're using vegetables and any of the sauces that I showed you in the 21-day guide with the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, like the yummy sauce or the ultimate sauce or salsa or even just a little soy sauce. But it just sort of takes, not that grains are boring. I'm happy to eat just a bowl of white rice. Really, I find it delicious, but it just makes them a little bit more special. And these would be great if you ever stuff squashes for the holidays. If you did the webinar where we showed you the acorn squash, well, these could be part of that stuffing. All right, so the next recipe is brand new, so it's not going to get in the book unless I can get it back from Amazon to add this, but it is a pepperoni pizza potato. And this is what Charles is going to have for lunch, and I'm really excited about this recipe because it's just delicious. Because you know we love starch, we love potatoes, and if you don't want to use a ripe potato, that's fine, guys. You can use a sweet potato. I'm not here to argue about potatoes. I think they're the greatest food in the world. All starch, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and winter squashes are my favorite. So I always look for the largest one I can find. This is an organic russet, and I microwaved it because I'm not going to turn on my air fryer or my oven for one potato, which is what I'm making right now. This is going to be Charles's lunch. And I really do like microwaving potatoes because at least this kind, it makes them really kind of soft and very good for this recipe. So I've got my potato already cooked, and I'm going to just put that over here for now. Now, we're going to use a marinara sauce. I recommend the quick sun-dried marinara sauce in my book Unprocessed, or in the 21-day recipe guide that comes with the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, or you can just go online and watch my television show, Healthy Living with Chef AJ. If you watch episode 112 with Dr. Joel Kahn, you can watch me make and get the recipe for my quick sun-dried tomato marinara, as well as the topping we're going to use, which is the Enlightened Faux Parmesan, which again is also in Unprocessed and in the Ultimate Weight Loss 21-day recipe guide. So we're going to use this. It's really, I mean, you can make this marinara sauce in like 3 minutes, and by that, and there's no pot to clean up because you're making it in the blender. Now, again, even though I'm unprocessed and personally do not buy any processed food, I travel full time, and my husband is not a food addict. He can have a little salt and a little sugar. He doesn't eat any oil or animal products or drink any alcohol. So he'll sometimes buy a processed pasta sauce because he's not going to make my recipe. What I'm going to recommend is, if you absolutely have to, is to buy this brand at Trader Joe's. I get nothing for promoting Trader Joe's, but what I like about it is it's organic, number one, and it's really clean. It's fat-free. There's no oil and there's no sugar, and there is a little salt. And when people say, well, is it going to be a trigger for you? Well, no, because it's got black pepper, and I'm allergic to black pepper. And one of the benefits of being allergic to black pepper is almost every processed food has black pepper, so it's not going to tempt me. I'm not going to go on a bender and drink this jar of sauce. So he has that for his, when he wants to make some, which I don't eat pasta anyway, so that's when he makes it on deference to me. When I'm not home, he'll cook up some pasta and he'll have this. But please do try the quick sun-dried tomato marinara. So why is it called pepperoni pizza potatoes? Well, because it tastes like pepperoni pizza. How come? I'm going to show you this right now. Now, while we're recording this, I don't yet have a code, but hopefully when this airs, I will have a discount code for you with this new company that I found, and they seem to be very nice. Now, I made these in my air fryer. I can't show you how to use the air fryer because, as I told you, 2 plugs maximum. I never read the book to the air fryer. I do everything the same, guys. Honestly, it's not rocket science. I put everything in at 400 for 20 minutes. That's what I do. Most of the time, I don't use any seasoning. That's how I do it. Now that I have the Breville, I'm doing the same thing, except I'm doing it with 2 trays and larger volumes. So I'm using the QVC one that was my birthday present. And what I did is I took 8 cups of sliced mushrooms, which was 20 ounces. Trader Joe's sells them in 10-ounce bags. And you can see when people say, oh my God, I can't eat a pound of vegetables, this is not even 2 cups of food. This was a pound and a quarter of mushrooms that I cooked in the air fryer or air fried. I don't know if the word is cooked for 20 minutes. But here's the secret ingredient, and this is why it tastes like pepperoni pizza. And this blew Charles and myself away. It's from a place in Nevada, California called the Local Spicery, and it's called pepperoni spice. And I'm a big fan of any company that not only does salt-free, but that will do pepper-free for me or just naturally does pepper-free. The ingredients are smoked paprika, guajillo chili, aniseed, mustard seeds, arbol chili, garlic, and fennel. And it is organic. And the company's going to be sending me more salt-free, pepper-free spice blends to buy, and hopefully, like I said, I will get you a code like I did for Benson's Table Tasty and Beemon Paz Vinegar and Napa Valley Naturals and Date Syrup and the Instant Pot and every other and Beet Boost. So this is really, really good. You know, in culinary school, we actually did something like that where we made, quote, sausage. It was all out of veggies, and we had to create our own spice blend. It's so much easier when it's done for you. So what I did is I took the 8 cups of sliced mushrooms, which was the 2 10-ounce bags from Trader Joe's, and I kind of dunked it in water just real quickly and drained it because I wanted the spices to stick. I took 1 tablespoon of this very potent, delicious spice, mixed it up, and then I put it in the air fryer for about 20 minutes. And again, you can always cook things longer if they're not done to your liking. What I love about the air fryer, look at that, guys. The quinoa is already ready. How quick was that? We'll get to it in a minute. What I love about the air fryer, especially for people that are adverse to eating vegetables, is it makes everything taste better. So I'm not really a mushroom fan. I'll eat them, but I never really liked them. And in the air fryer, even plain mushrooms, plain button mushrooms, air fried, are like delicious, the most delicious thing I've ever tasted. So if you're somebody that's still struggling with eating vegetables, consider getting an air fryer. And if you right now, the Breville is on sale. It's like $265 at Bed Bath & Beyond. That may not last, but it's totally worth it if you have trouble eating healthy food. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take this potato, and again, don't write me about potatoes and don't write me about rice, you know. Stop majoring in minor things. Let's worry about the big picture. Use an organic sweet potato if you want. It will be just as delicious. My husband and I, we do eat potatoes. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour in some of my quick sun-dried marinara, as much or as little as I want, actually. And then I'm going to take these amazing pepperoni pizza mushrooms and stuff this in the top, just like that. And then I am going to sprinkle some of the quick sun-dried marinara on top. Maybe a little on the side where I messed up. And I'm telling you guys, you are going to be in heaven. Charles has not tasted it this way. He's tasted the mushrooms, but he hasn't tasted it like this. This is like eating pepperoni pizza, but so much healthier. Now, what you could do, but it's a lot more labor intensive, so I'm not going to do it right now, but I have the recipe for this in my book, is a recipe called potato pizzas. And so what you do is you take your mandolin, and then you cut slices of potato. You know, it could even be a little bit thicker than this. I think it might be better. And then you bake them, or you can put them in the air fryer. And then what you do, I'll make a couple of these just to show you. But this is a lot more work, guys. But this would be a knockout appetizer. Is you take the potato slice, you've cooked it already. Then you put the tomato sauce on top. Now, if you're going to do this, I recommend that you get the biggest, fattest, widest potato, because otherwise you're going to be doing this forever. Now, you can top this with anything. If you eat olives, finely chopped olives is great, red onion, fresh basil, artichoke hearts, even finely chopped broccoli we've done. These are such a crowd pleaser. But again, they're more labor intensive. And again, just a little sprinkle. And then you want to be putting these back in the oven because you want to serve these hot. But this is just another way to do the pepperoni pizza mushroom. All right, so now what are we waiting on? We are waiting on the wild rice. We've got most of our recipes done, actually. Well, actually, no, there's a couple more. So what I'm going to show you now is a bonus recipe. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let this kale, why did I say kale? It's always kale. Whatever the question, kale is the answer. I'm going to let the quinoa come down to pressure for about 10 minutes before I release it. But I'm going to need to unplug it now so that I can use my blender. Whoa, 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 whoa. How do you like that? So I'm going to put this down here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you something that I just learned about a week ago. And it has changed my life. And this is from my friend and partner in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, John Pierre, the celebrity fitness and nutritional guru who trains all the celebrities in LA, like Ellen and so many more. And so he taught me something, and it's called a blended salad. Now, it may sound really gross, and the truth is it may look really gross depending on what you use. But I'm going to tell you, it was absolutely delicious. Last Saturday, when he showed our mastery program how to make it in a live demo, it wasn't very attractive because we actually put some of my barefoot salad dressing in, which is delicious when it's a dark brown. But, you know, I don't judge. And so I poured it in a glass container like this and put it in the cooler because I was going to be traveling on the train to speak at the Orange County Veg Fest. And my train was delayed, and while we were waiting, Charles and I'm like getting hungry, and I hadn't eaten yet that day. It was about 12 o'clock, and I took it out and I took a sip, and it was like fresh in a glass. It was so delicious. I loved it. And then I started craving them and wanting them every day, and it was perfect because it was a way to get in a lot of vegetables that I'm used to eating because I eat 4 pounds of non-starchy vegetables a day without having to do all the chewing and without having to do all the cutting. And so now it's part of my rotation. And for people that don't have time, they're teachers or whatever job you have where you don't have time to do this in the morning, or because eating a salad is great, but it takes a long time. This is great. And these are as varied as are what you'll put in them. So as long as you like what the ingredient is, you should like it. See, the thing is when we eat a salad, the volume is huge. And while I don't recommend blending food in general for satiety or for people trying to lose weight, when all you're blending is non-starchy vegetables that are 67 to 125 calories per pound, knock yourself out. Always leave a little texture so that you're not just sucking it down so that you're chewing. But what happens is this huge salad that would take me an hour to eat now is compressed, and I can drink it. And I still drink it slowly, and I still chew it. So again, let me just show you what I'm using today, and it's really up to you. And I'm going to be getting in, let me just weigh this just for fun because people just don't realize how much. Let's see. This tomato is 8 ounces and the bell pepper is 8 ounces. So I'm getting in a pound. I'm getting in a pound and a half, which I usually eat 2 pounds when I eat them steamed. So what I'm doing is I'm going to be putting in, I love this organic herb salad mix from Trader Joe's, and you can use anything you want. Now, if you use just straight up like kale or the dark greens, it may be a little bit more bitter. So usually if I'm using that, I'll do half that or half of a gentler kind of lettuce. But what's great is it really is going to decrease the volume, so it's going to be much easier for me to eat. And I'm going to put that in the blender right now. And then I'm going to add a tomato because I like it. This is what I like. You can add anything you like. Could have probably put the whole thing in the bowl. This tomato actually weighed a half a pound. And when people say, oh, I can't eat a pound of vegetables, really? You couldn't eat 2 tomatoes? Seriously? Okay. Maybe you can't. Okay, and I just happen to have organic yellow bell pepper because I always buy the 3-pack with the 3 colors. And I'm not going to use the stem, but I don't mind using the seeds. I use everything. Or if I don't use it, it goes in my scrap bag for when I'm going to make my broth. So then my yellow bell pepper. Now, you can put dressing in. I have put barefoot dressing in, and it's really delicious, but it's also good without it. So now I'm going to blend. It may not look beautiful, but it tastes amazing. If there's any herbs you enjoy, like I was thinking I have some parsley, I could put that in. I've got some mint for the next recipe. That would be delicious in there. But don't knock it till you try it. And again, sometimes it's bright green. I like to leave a little bit of texture there so it's a little bit of chunkiness in there. And this makes probably, see how many glasses it makes. 1. Charles, would you like a blended salad? So it makes 2. So let's, you know what they say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Charles, would you like a blended salad? Okay, so let's see if I like it before I give it to my husband. Oh man. Tell people what you think, honestly, because Charles wouldn't lie. He's a Sagittarius. That sign always tells the truth.
Very refreshing.
But you don't think it's bad, right?
No.
You're not lying, right?
Mm-mm.
It's really good, guys. Oh, God, I don't want to take it. Can I have a break this now and enjoy this? It needs to be a little colder. I should have refrigerated the the tomato, and the bell pepper before doing this. That would be a little bit better. All right, so now let's get back to our quinoa, which has rested for a while now. If there's anybody out there that wants to buy me a bigger kitchen, Charles, I can't wait for you to try the whatchamacallit, the potato coming. So remember, I've got my 12 ounces of defrosted artichoke hearts here. And now I'm coming back. I'm going to release the pressure from the quinoa dish because it's been at least 10 minutes. It's almost out anyway. The wild rice is counting down. It's got 33 minutes left, so it does take a little bit longer, wild rice, as do any rices. The thing is the Instant Pot does not go faster on grains. It's still going to take, grains take a long time to cook. They have to absorb water, but what's great about it is, which is with the push of a button, and you've got the nonstick. So now I'm going to take my quinoa that has been cooking with the artichoke hearts. I'm going to dump it in the bowl. Find the spatula. Mix it together, and again, we can enjoy this hot, cold, or at room temperature. I particularly love to have this in my salads. We're really cooking here. You wonder how anything gets done in this tiny little kitchen, but it does. And this does not make a tremendous amount, so feel free to double this recipe. Even in the baby iPod, you can double the recipe. Ooh, can you see that? Real steam. This is so good and it's so pretty. The red quinoa. This would be a great thing for Christmas. You know, the red and the green with the sun-dried tomato and the artichoke. Any kind of color quinoa would work. Black, it may not be so pretty, but there we go. And we're going to use this in a multitude of ways. But when you have flavorful ingredients like sun-dried tomatoes and artichoke hearts, you really don't miss the salt. So there we go. You know, people always say, well, where do you get your protein on a plant-based diet? If I had a nickel for every time somebody said that in the last 40 years, I'd be the richest person in the world. Well, all plants have protein, but quinoa especially does. It's one of the highest sources, actually, and it's just very good. And just make sure you buy it. John Pierre knows this statistic about where you should buy it, because there's one country that harms animals in some kind of ritual sacrifice when they have the harvest. And I'm going to get that information when this airs live so that I can remind you of which one to buy. So this is done. So now let's do our final recipe. Hey, Charles, would you mind putting this in the fridge for me so that it can be chilled, or the freezer? This is so good, guys. Delicious. Instead of a milk mustache, we should have a kale mustache. So now I'm going to make the last recipe, which is called Magnificent Millet Medley. It is called that because it really is magnificent. It's made from millet, and it's a medley. Medley meaning lots of different ingredients. This was probably the last recipe that I put in the book. And what happened is I had a dinner party one night with some friends, and two of the people that came were Brian Wendell, the executive producer of Forks Over Knives, and his girlfriend Darshana Thacker, who is the chef of Forks Over Knives. And I made this particular dish, and it was just kind of an impromptu thing. That's how I cooked, throwing everything in, and everybody loved it. And he said, "Oh, I love this recipe. Can I run it on, Forks Over Knives?" They often on their email list, their mailing list, they'll send out recipes from other chefs. They featured mine for many years, and I said, "You absolutely can after the book comes out." With all the rice scare, and some people still afraid to eat rice, I've started to try to create recipes with other grains. But even though I still eat rice and love rice, white and brown, even from Texas, I think millet is one of the most delicious grains you ever can eat. It is an underused grain, in my opinion. And if you're somebody that likes rice and is choosing not to eat it, you may actually like it because it has sort of that nuttiness that brown rice does. Now, I don't know if you can get it in a regular grocery store, but you certainly can get it in a natural food store like Whole Foods. You can certainly get it online. And sometimes people with certain grain sensitivities can use the grains or pseudo grains we're using today, like quinoa, which is technically a seed, wild rice, which is technically a grass. Sometimes things like buckwheat people can eat, or teff or amaranth, more of the ancient grains, of which millet is an ancient grain. And we also used it in the C.R.A.M muffin. So we're going to start with 8 cups of millet. And to make 8 cups of millet, you need 8 cups of millet, you need 2 cups of dry millet to make 8 cups of cooked millet. And how you cook it, if you use a pressure cooker, then use one of the pressure cooker books because they all give the guidelines on how to cook it. You can also cook it on the stove if you don't have one, but I love pressure cooking it in the little baby iPod. It's really easy because it takes only 10 minutes and 10 minutes natural pressure release. How much water? I don't want to say it's controversial, but when Sharon McCrae tells me what to do, it's not always what the book and the internet says, so do it however you do it. Just you want to get this nice little kind of fluffy millet. Now you could toast the millet first. I've only done that once, and I guess it brings out more of a nuttiness, sort of like when you toast nuts, especially if you're eating them raw and unsalted. But it's labor intensive and it takes time, and you have to do it very carefully so that it kind of pops but doesn't burn. I guess it makes a difference, but I'm not going to do it. But it's an option. So we have our 8 cups of cooked millet. And by the way, I was first introduced to millet at Rancho La Puerta in Mexico, where I have the privilege of teaching cooking at their culinary kitchen and also often going as a guest lecturer. They serve a grain every day at lunch. And one day it might be couscous, and one day quinoa, and one day brown rice. And one day they had millet. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I had never seen it, heard of it, or had it. And they put fresh blueberries in it, and it was absolutely delicious. And millet is great by itself. I've used it in some of my desserts. Those of you that contributed to my Indiegogo campaign know that it was in some of the desserts that I made. And I believe episode, I think it's 109 of Healthy Living with Hans Deal. I did a parfait made from millet, but it's really quite delicious. Please give it a chance. It can be used for sweet or savory. And yes, you could probably do brown rice or quinoa in this, but then it's not magical millet. It's, please give millet a chance. So we've got our 8 cups of millet here, and now we're going to start adding a bunch of yummy stuff to it. So what are we going to add? Okay, well, first we're going to add, as soon as I find it, it's all here, believe it or not. I've done what's called my mise en place. We're going to add some pineapple. I've used a 20-ounce can of unsweetened crushed pineapple. And what I did is I drained all the liquid out and I squeezed it out to leave a cup of pineapple juice. And I was left with this much pineapple from the can. So I'm going to add that into the bowl. Right? Now, the pineapple juice, when I drained it, I put it in a little bowl with a cup of lime juice, and I added a half a cup of chia seeds because I wanted to thicken it a little bit. You could do it without the chia seeds, but then what happens is the dressing kind of just falls to the bottom. It just disperses a little bit better with the chia seeds because it gives it kind of a gelatinous quality. And so you can see that the juice, it got a little bit thicker, and now I'm going to pour that in. And that is my dressing. That is my only dressing. There is a spoon. Okay. So now, just Just going to mix this up because I really want the millet to get the dressing nice and tasty. Oh, it smells so good. Pineapple, lime, it's unbelievable. The textures and the flavors in this dish. Now, this dish was inspired by another place I speak called the Oaks in Ojai. And those of you that follow my dear friend Heather Goodwin, who's lost over 300 pounds in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, I entered her in a contest for a free week there, and thanks to all you guys who voted, Heather actually won. They have a salad there called, I can't remember what it's called. It's called the spa salad. Oh, it's called the high protein salad. I'm not sure why it's called the high protein salad, but they have this salad there that I get when I'm there, which has shredded carrots, shredded cabbage, green apples, and oranges, and that's it. But it's delicious, and I wanted to have a salad with those particular flavors, but have it be a little bit heartier, so I created this recipe. So in this bowl, I've got carrots and cabbage. I'm using about, I believe it's 4 cups, and I just use the 8-ounce bags because can't do too much right now. So I've got that in there, and I can leave it whole like this, or I can chop it a little bit with my ulu, which I like. It's up to you how finely you like to chop it, or maybe you don't like it chopped at all. So now I'm going to need a bigger bowl, so I'm going to add this to this. I'm going to add my millet with the pineapple and lime juice in it to the bowl. And I still have a few more delicious ingredients to add. Go. Now, I'm going to use, some of these tools are really a godsend when your hand is a little bit impaired. This is called the Vidalia Chop Wizard. You can get it at Bed Bath & Beyond. It comes with different size blades, but it's going to work really well right now. And so what I'm going to add is 8 ounces of cucumbers. These are the organic Persian. I prefer to use these because I find that what I don't like about cucumbers is the waxy peel and the seeds. Well, these have no waxy peel, and these basically have no discernible seeds. This actually is exactly 8 ounces. These are 2 little cucumbers. And so when people say, I can't eat a pound of vegetables, really? You couldn't eat 4 of these? I gave you like $1 million. So this is going to go in there, and I'm going to use this little machine called the Vidalia Chop Wizard because I think it's really fun when things are really small. It makes it funner to eat and easier to eat, and this makes just a nice uniform presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it in this, and then I don't want to put too much in at one time or you could technically break it, but it's super easy, super fun. You can get the kids involved. If you try to put too big of a piece, it'll be difficult to close. The other thing I like about this, it has a measuring cup on the side. So, for example, in the C.R.A.M muffins where it calls for 4 cups of apples, if you were to do it in this, you would be able to see on the side the measurements. But I like to do things in ounces just because when you buy stuff at the store like cucumbers, well, the Persian cucumbers came in a 1 pound bag, so 1 pound container, so I knew that 8 ounces was half as much as in there. So now I've got my cucumbers, and I'm going to do the same thing with the apple. So, but you can see how nicely and how perfectly this chopped it. And people just really appreciate that when they're eating it. Put that in there. And luckily, we had our house cleaned yesterday professionally, so my counter is clean. I'm going to do the same thing with the apple, and I am using a green apple because it is less sweet, and there's plenty of sweetness already from the pineapple in here. So this is one of those recipes that, I have a few that like regular, actually all of mine are tested on regular people, but this is a particularly one that people seem to really love. So we've got 3 more ingredients to go in. We're going to put in a green apple. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that song, God Didn't Make Little Green Apples. We actually knew the guy that sang it named O.C. Smith. He was a reverend of a church we used to go to. One of the most extraordinary people I've ever met in my life. That was quite a sad day when he died the Sunday after, or the Friday after Thanksgiving in 2000. And was it 2011, I believe, or was it 2000? Well, 2001. Boy, he wasn't that old, and he was vegetarian. He was just a lovely, lovely person. His wife Robbie is still alive. There's certain people in your life that really make an impact on who you are, and he was one of them. I'll tell you, he was just amazing. I used to take classes with him. What a wonderful singer too. So now I'm just going to cut the apples, and yep. Mrs. Bravo at True North used macho. He didn't use one, even though I brought him one. But I'll tell you, once you get that tip of your finger chopped off, you're going to thank me that you're using a manual glove. All right. So that little beep you heard was my oven saying that we have 1 minute left on the C.R.A.M muffins. But what I like to do is, once they're done, I'm going to take them out to show them to you. But what I usually do is kind of just turn the oven off and just kind of let them sit with the oven door open a little bit. Because if you take them out too soon, they'll fall apart, especially if you're not using the paper liner. You really do have to be patient here and let them rest. It calls for 1 green apple. That was probably about 3 cups, but it called for a large one. I couldn't find a large one, so instead I'm using 2 small ones. I'm going to put that in. I still have 2 ingredients to go in this magical millet medley. I made this last week at the OC Veg Fest. People seem to really enjoy it. And it makes quite a lot. Okay, so there we go. The C.R.A.M muffins are done. See if I can get this. Can't get this on. There we go. All right. Whoa, beautiful. I don't know. Well, I'll pick them up so you know Charles doesn't have to move the camera. Look at these. Perfect. This is exact. You're not going to use the little toothpick test here, guys, because it's not your traditional stuff. So I could probably take these out because they'll be fine. All right. So here we go. This is what the first tray looks like. You're going to love these, but please let them cool. I mean, at least, it's okay if you eat them warm, but especially if you're using the silicone ones without the liners, if you do not let them rest and cool, they will fall apart when you try to take them out. So here's these, and we can put these on a tray. Actually, there's no room right now on my counter. Well, maybe there is. Move the mushrooms. We've got 24 of these. Amazing. You can kind of see this one got kind of squishy. You can see that if you don't let them rest long enough, it's not going to be the way you need them. So we'll take these out. These will be fine. And we've got just a couple more ingredients to go in the magical millet salad. About a 1/4 cup of onion and a 1/4 cup of fresh mint. So again, I'm going to use this little tool because then everything is the same size. I kind of know what a 1/4 cup is just because I do this all the time, so I'm not going to worry not to put too much unless you're strong. There we go. Let's just do a little bit. And you can buy onion already cut up now, especially red. I think red onion is better, in my opinion, for the recipes I do. I know a lot of people like the Maui sweet onions, but in these, a little bit, though, a lot in this recipe. Remember, guys, anytime you cook, you can always add. You can't take away. So I'll probably put a little bit more after you guys leave. We're going to serve this tonight. We have our mastery program that we run, and all the people come over for dinner and fellowship. And then we've got some mint somewhere right here. So one of the things I love to use in general, and especially now because I just can't use a knife, are these herb scissors that Sharon McCrae gave me. I don't know if you can see, but they have 8 blades. And so what it does is when you cut herbs, especially like basil, you often use a chiffonade technique where you roll it up like you were rolling like a cigar, and then you kind of go boom, boom, boom. Or you could use a regular scissors, but what this does is it has all the blades there. And so it just makes, let me just show you, it makes these perfect ribbons where it's just, I don't have good knife skills, and right now I can't even use a knife. So these herb scissors are absolutely terrific. I use them on basil and parsley and on my favorite herb, which is mint. And so that's what you do. So I will cut more mint a little bit later. There's no need for you to sit there and watch me cut mint, but I'm going to add more. In the meantime, I am going to stir this delicious salad up. And if you find it needs more dressing, it probably won't. But, you could always add a little bit more lime juice. That will also make it less sweet if you find this. It's not too sweet, I promise you, with the green apples. Let me put the muffins. I can't wait to get to True North and have Dr. Lyle try these to see if he likes these. I sure hope he does, because they were made in his honor. Again, you've got to let it cool because they won't set up if you try to eat them hot. I promise you. I know how tempting it is. So if you're wanting to cram with C.R.A.M muffins at night, make them in the morning if you can wait that long. So there we go. You can see these are just as wow. If you guys could smell this, it's so good, so good. So we've got 11 minutes left on our wild rice. So it's up to Gustavo if he wants to wait to show you. But it's really just going to look like rice with mushrooms in it, but it's going to taste divine. Again, if I had more hand power, I could do things a little more quickly, but we can show that disabled doesn't mean unable. It may take me a little bit longer, but I can still get healthy food on the table. And when this was at its worst and I was on narcotics, I was eating very simply. I was taking bags of organic frozen brown rice from Trader Joe's and microwaving it with a bag of fire roasted peppers and onions, and I was serving that to dinner for myself and Charles with a few drops of hot sauce. He had a little soy sauce on his, and he thought it was a delicious dinner. So if you're struggling with your weight or thinking of how to get healthy meals on the table, sometimes the more simple you eat, the more simple food tastes good. So this is really good. I promise you, I'm very proud of this recipe, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So this is the magical millet medley, for lack of a better name. And it's very pretty. It looks like a rainbow in a bowl. So our wild rice is ready. It took a little longer because some grains do. This little LED readout just shows you how many minutes have elapsed since it's done. And you really should let it rest a little bit longer because then any additional water will be absorbed. But I don't want you guys to have to wait any longer, so I'm just going to release the pressure, unplug the pressure cooker. All right, here we go. All right. So now, I'm going to transfer this to a serving dish. Oh boy, does this smell good. This is our wild rice with dried mushrooms. And when the dried mushrooms cook, you don't need salt. You don't need seasoning at all when you've got flavor. Salt is really a lazy way to season food. The more you use, the more you need, and the less whole natural food tastes good. And believe it or not, the more sweet you need. I recently interviewed Dr. Roseanne Albier, and she talked about how when we eat salt, we eat about 11% more calories from food, particularly from fat. She talks about something called passive overconsumption. So when you can take those 30 days necessary to neuroadapt and stop eating salt, this food will taste absolutely incredible. So there we go. So thank you so much for watching my new recipes. Just to recap, I'll show you what we made today. We did a little bonus recipe that might be unusual and that some of you may not want to try, but I encourage you to. This is our salad in a glass. Especially if you're on the go or can't chew or can't use your hand or aren't getting enough vegetables or don't have time to eat a salad. This is delicious, and there's so many varieties. I'm sure you'll find some vegetable that will work for you. We just took out of the pressure cooker the wild rice with dried mushrooms. Smells amazing, a really toothsome, hearty texture. We made our sun-dried tomato artichoke quinoa. this beautiful, delicious, magnificent millet medley. This could almost be a dessert. Not quite sweet enough, but it's really quite a wonderful side dish for you to take to potlucks or even special holiday events. Our entree was our pepperoni pizza potato, which we also made into little appetizer size personal pizzas. And in honor of our beloved Dr. Lyle, the long awaited C.R.A.M muffins. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Chef AJ, and I make healthy taste delicious.